educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach.
All right, let's go ahead and open the doors. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here live on Daily with Doc. My name is Becca Dukes, and as the hostess of this program, we are on Pharmacist Fridays. So today we are going to be speaking with an amazing pharmacist who has, really found the importance and the value and the power in nutrition. And I'm super excited that he has taken time to tell the world, not only taking what he learned in pharmacy school, but also in life and his continued education as he is continually researching and learning and bringing that information to us. So if you would like to join us here live on Daily with Doc and Becca, you are welcome to do so by going to DailywithDocZoom.com. That's all together, DailywithDoc, D-O-C, Zoom, ZOOM.com. And we are here most weeks, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, some Tuesdays, but exception is not next week, as we will be at a live event the end of May, first part of June. And for those of you who are going to the George Norrie Contact in the Desert, make sure that you stop by and say hello to myself and Dr. Wallach and Coach AJ and Coach Rod. And we are going to be just kind of a light and in the midst there at the Contact in the Desert event. So if you're watching us on YouTube or Rumble or Patreon or Brighteon or Instagram or LinkedIn, make sure that you send a little note. Let us know where you are joining us from. We love to know the extent of our reach. And most importantly, please share this information, as you, I'm sure, whether you know it or not, have somebody that is struggling with different areas in their health. And today's show may just be that ticket that they need to make that U-turn to reach a better health journey. So without further ado, we just want to say welcome to Daily with Doc. If you were invited by somebody specific, make sure that you get back with them. If you found us on your own or part of our newsletter and you have never worked with anybody or tried any of the products mentioned on our program, then feel free to give our call team a call at 855-949-3377. Again, that's 855-949-3377, or go to our website. As this program is sponsored by DailyWithDoc.com. You'll find the good foods, bad foods list, and also the store and replays of our previous presentations. So today, as I mentioned, is Pharmacist Friday. And I know that Pharmacist Ben has some information that you may not know the actual extent that the bile has within the digestive system. Pharmacist Ben, hi, how are you?
Well, hello, Rebecca. Good to see you and good to see everybody.
Good to see you too. It
Thank
looks
you
like
for
you got a
having me.
little bit of like the northern lights going on behind you.
I did that
That's
intentionally.
pretty
Isn't that pretty?
That is beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful.
I'm not sure can you see me okay?
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. Don't mess with it. You're taking away my little bright spot in the show.
I got these lights, these new lights. There we go. Okay, how about this? Is this better? Tell me if this is better. Is that too bright?
That's a little too bright. So maybe, you know what? Let's just go with it, because actually that does perfect. That looks great.
All right. I'm still working on this lighting thing.
Yeah, we're working on everything as we do progress over perfection to bring information to others. So Pharmacist Ben, last week as we were doing our Pharmacist Fridays, the question came up about bile, and then also on Pharmacist Ben Bites, there was a little bit brought up about that. So today we're going to focus on bile.
Bile, B-I-L-E, bile, not bio. People always wonder if it's bio or bile. It's bile. And I consider bile to be the most underappreciated fluid in the body. You don't hear a lot about bile. And we talk about it, and Doc talks about it. And it's an important part of the longevity message because it's an important part of the digestive system. But bile plays a much more important role in the body than merely for digestion. I first started to understand the importance of bile because I'm in the skin business, and when you have a bile problem, inevitably it's going to show up on your skin. And there's a lot of skin issues, boils, cysts, really severe skin issues that they're very frustrating for skincare professionals to treat because they're not really skin problems, even though they show up on the skin. And this is kind of a common theme when it comes to dermatology and when it comes to the skin. You can't, very rarely, in fact, almost never is a skin problem in the sense that it's caused by something on the skin. There are contact issues. They call them contact dermatitises and such. Contact meaning your skin contacts something and you get a reaction. But these are relatively rare. I would venture to say pretty much all skin problems do not begin at the level of the skin, and many of them, probably most of them, begin at the level of the digestive system, and many of them have to do with dirty, sticky, sludgy bile. And you've heard of that term. You've heard us talk about dirty, sticky, sludgy bile. But let's kind of break that down and talk a little bit about what bile is, what bile does, and what exactly dirty, sticky, sludgy bile is, and how the problem begins, or what causes the problem. So real quickly, you eat a food, goes in your mouth, goes down your esophagus into your stomach, and the digestive system begins in earnest at the level of the stomach. Chewing is part of the digestive process. Even thinking is a part of the digestive process. And I always tell people that digestion really begins with thought. Just thinking about food will activate your salivary glands, which will begin the enzymatic digestion of foods. So this is one of the reasons why it's important to really pay attention to what you're eating. And one of the most problematic strategies that we have around foods is that we eat while we're doing other things. We don't even think about our eating sometimes. Mindless eating. In fact, if we ate mindfully, we would probably eat a fraction of what we eat. A lot of times we just eat without even thinking about it. So mindful eating, paying attention to the foods you're eating, thinking about the foods you're eating is actually where the digestive process begins. And then it continues with chewing and the salivary secretion and the saliva bathing the food as you're chewing it. And then it goes down your esophagus and goes into your stomach. And that's really where the digestive process kicks in earnest. When you eat a food, it goes into your stomach. Acids are secreted, enzymes are secreted. Between the acids and the enzymes, you get a breakdown of, you get a pretty dramatic breakdown of all of the foods, the fats, the proteins, and the carbohydrates. There's also a chemical that's secreted in the stomach called IF, or intrinsic factor, that plays a role in the absorption of vitamin B12 down in the intestine. So a lot of stuff happens in the stomach. Once the food is processed in the stomach, it's no longer considered to be food at that point. They call it chyme, C-H-Y-M-E. And that chyme is like a soupy mass, a mushy soupy mass, and it's acidic when we're healthy. We'll talk about that here in a second. When we're healthy, that chyme mass is acidic, and the acid mass, the chyme, drops into the intestine through the stomach. At that point, the acid in the chyme triggers the release of juices or digestive juices or enzymatic juices from the pancreas and bile from the gallbladder. Both bile and the pancreatic juices are alkaline, and when they contact the acid chyme, you get a fizzy reaction. Did you ever do that experiment in high school or in elementary school where you take apple juice or you take lemon juice and you mix it with baking soda, and you get a fizzing reaction? That's called an acid-base reaction. And that acid-base reaction, the reaction of the base, the alkaline and base are synonymous. The alkaline bile and the alkaline pancreas hitting the acid chyme creates this fizzing reaction. That fizzing reaction causes the release of fatty substances from the chyme. Technically, that process is called emulsification. And you may have heard that term. Bile is known as nature's emulsifier, or the body's emulsifier. If you ever bake a roast beef or something in a pan, and you bake it in the oven, and you got all these fatty juices stuck to the bottom of the pan, you can put a little lemon juice on these acidy substances on the pan, and then put some baking soda on the pan, or even soap on the pan. Soap, by the way, is by definition alkaline. You could put soap, or you could put some baking soda on the lemon juice. You'll get a fizzing reaction, and that fizzing reaction will cause the release of the fats that are stuck to the pan. It's a little trick for getting rid of stuck grease on pans, is you leverage the acid-base reaction of either lemon juice or vinegar and soap or baking soda. You get this fizzing reaction, and that fizz will cause the release of the fats that are stuck in the pan. Well, the same, have you ever done that? That's kind of like a lady's trick for after Thanksgiving and such. I don't, maybe not just ladies, but for anybody who's cooking after Thanksgiving, that's kind of a little trick that you can use to get the grease off the bottom of your pan. Well, the body does the same thing. It gets the grease or the fat or the oil, oil-soluble materials out of the chyme via this acid-base reaction. So this acid-base reaction is critical, absolutely critical for health, because the acid-base reaction allows vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, various plant fatty materials, certain minerals like selenium and zinc, to a certain degree calcium, to be released from the food so that they can then be absorbed into the intestine. So bile, by virtue of its reaction with the acid chyme, the acid food, allows for the fatty nutrients to be released from the food so they can be absorbed in the intestine. Without that reaction happening, you will run deficient in numerous vitamins, in numerous minerals, and in numerous plant-derived adaptogens or plant-derived nutrients. This is a serious, serious problem, because as we'll come to find out, a lot of people are not making enough bile, or their bile is not as functional as it should be, which we'll talk about here in a second. So bile hits the acidic mass, the acidic chyme, and then the fatty nutrients are released. Then, this is very interesting what happens next. The bile then is partially excreted out of the body. It goes through the intestine into the large intestine, and then it comes out of the body. And much of the stool is made up of bile. In fact, the color of your stool can tell you how well your bile is functioning. If you have pale stools, that's a sign that you have a bile problem. Bile has a brownish color, and that's what gives the stool the characteristic color, is the brownish, the brown color. In fact, super pale stools are a serious health, a sign of a serious health problem. If you ever have stools and they're super pale or white, that could be a very serious sign of either gallbladder problems or liver problems, or usually gallbladder problems or liver problems. So some of the bile is eliminated out of the small intestine, large intestine, out of the body. And this is very important because bile does not merely help you digest your food. It's not merely an emulsifier. It's also a detoxifier. And toxins, the body will eliminate toxins which tend to be fatty in the bile. So as the bile is being secreted out of the gallbladder into the intestine, it is carrying with it toxicity from the liver and the blood, and it's a source of elimination of various toxins, including prescription drugs. Remember, prescription drugs are toxins, and they have to be processed in the liver and eliminated out of the body, many of which, many drugs being a part of the bile elimination process. Old hormones are eliminated via the bile system, especially estrogen is eliminated from the bile system. So if you have an issue with bile, not only are you not going to be eliminating your drugs, but you're going to have a problem eliminating your estrogen as well and other hormones. Also, bile is a form of cholesterol. It's a derivative of cholesterol. It's a breakdown product of cholesterol. And as the bile is being eliminated through the intestine, your cholesterol is coming out. And this is one of the ways the body maintains cholesterol balance, is through bile. So in addition to being an emulsifier, which most people know, fat emulsifier, bile is a major detoxifying substance. It's helping the body eliminate old hormones. It's helping the body eliminate drugs. It's helping the body eliminate various toxins that we subject ourselves to just by being alive in the year 2024 in the United States of America and on planet Earth. It's a detoxifying substance. And bile is one of the ways that the body will eliminate cholesterol to keep cholesterol balanced. But bile does even more than that. In addition to being a detoxifying substance, in addition to being a emulsifying substance, bile is also a very powerful antioxidant. It's also a bactericide. It kills excess bacteria in the small intestine. It's one of the ways the body controls excess bacteria in the small intestine. We've talked a lot lately about SIBO, and bile is one of the most important strategies that the body uses to control SIBO. There's even more. Bile plays a role in glucose, sugar metabolism. It's a very important lipid for diabetics, and bile deficiencies are part and parcel of metabolic syndrome, which is associated with diabetes or with blood sugar problems, dysglycemia. Bile is also an anti-inflammatory. Bile also protects the liver against cancer and helps support liver regeneration. Bile also is important for intestinal motility, the movement of food through the intestine. It's called intestinal motility. Bile actually has hormonal effects, and there are literally receptors on various cells, particularly cells in the intestine, for bile. So bile, while everybody knows about it as a part of the digestive system for helping the body process lipids, fats, it is as we say in biochemistry, a pleiotropic biochemical substance. Pleiotropic means it has many roles. Pleiotropism is a fancy biochemical word or biological word that means multifunctional. And this is why I am so big on bile health and gallbladder health. This is why, despite the fact that many physicians will tell you don't need your gallbladder, you can have your gallbladder taken out, and you can live a perfectly fine life. That is not true. Do not let them take your gallbladder unless you are in extreme agony, which, then it's understandable, because when you have your gallbladder, if you have gallstones, that can be ridiculously painful. I can see why somebody would have their gallbladder out. But other than that, there's really no reason to do it. Even then, there are other strategies you can use to break up gallstones, including sound waves. They can actually shoot ultrasound at gallstones to break them up. So keeping your gallbladder is an extremely important part of health. Now that you know how important bile is, but 1.2 million or so gallbladders are removed every year from people. Bile plays a role in soothing the intestine from the acid of the chyme. Without bile, the acid from the food, from the chyme, can irritate the intestinal lining. The body will use water to cool the intestine down. So when you don't have enough bile, you don't have a way of cooling down or neutralizing the acid in the intestine. The body will secrete water and liquid to try to cool the intestine down, leading to what is called chronic or explosive diarrhea. And this is one of the first things that happens, or one of the major things that happens when people don't have a gallbladder. So bile, I hope I made the case here for how important bile is. Now let's talk a little bit about how bile becomes dysfunctional. So I talked about how bile is eliminated through the intestine. I said some of the bile is eliminated through the intestine as a way that, as a mechanism for the body to detoxify, to eliminate old hormones and cholesterol, as well as frank full-blown toxins. However, some of that bile doesn't get eliminated. Some of that bile is reused. It's recycled. I forgot to tell you that bile is made in the liver, and it is goes from the liver into the gallbladder. Gall, by the way, is the fancy Latin way of saying bile. Bladder means bag. So the gallbladder is a bag of bile, and the gallbladder's role is to store the bile after it's made in the liver. So it's made in the liver, and then there's a little tube that shunts the bile that's made in the liver into the gallbladder, where it's concentrated so it can get dumped into the intestine. However, some of that bile that is in the gallbladder is not made in the intestine as much as it's recycled. It's obviously made in the intestine initially, but it's it's made in the liver initially, but it's recycled from the intestine. And then it goes into the liver, and then it goes into the gallbladder, and it goes into the intestine, back into the liver, and back into the gallbladder. It recycles. That's called bile recycling, or technically enterohepatic circulation. Entero means intestine, hepatic means liver, and circulation means circulation. Enterohepatic circulation refers to the bile that's not getting eliminated. It's going from the intestine to the liver and back into the gallbladder, circling around. Here's where this becomes an issue. Remember, bile is carrying toxins with it. So some of that enterohepatically circulated bile is going to be toxic. And those toxins are mostly going to come in from foods, although there will be some toxins that are coming in, as I say, from drugs, and also there'll be some toxins that are all old hormones. And as that enterohepatic circulating bile is circulating, and as the toxins are building up in the bile will become sludgy. The bile will become thick. The bile will become supersaturated. Supersaturation is what leads to stones. Remember we said how you take if you take a teaspoon of sugar, a teaspoon of salt, and put it in water, the first teaspoon goes in, the second teaspoon goes in, the third teaspoon goes in. There's going to be a point that's reached where that water is saturated with salt, and at that point, crystals will form. The salt won't go in, it'll crystallize. Well, the same thing happens with any supersaturated liquid. Once that liquid becomes saturated with solid material that can no longer be dissolved, crystals start to precipitate. When these crystals precipitate in the bile, as the bile is circulating, they can clog up the ducts that transport the bile to the intestine. That's what a gallstone is. Gallstones are the signs of supersaturated bile, which in turn is a sign of toxicity, mostly from the digestive system, mostly from food. Gallstones are a food problem. And yes, if you're in tremendous pain, tremendous agony, you can have your gallbladder taken out, and I probably would have mine taken out too. I don't blame you. But If you can avoid it, you need your gallbladder. Now, the reason why doctors feel comfortable taking out the gallbladder is because there's a secondary route of bile from the liver into the intestine. So most bile comes into the intestine through the gallbladder. When the food hits the acid food leaves the stomach and enters into the intestine. But there's a secondary route from the liver directly into the intestine. But this is nowhere near sufficient for effective digestion, emulsification of fats, for effective detoxification, for effective cholesterol release, and for effective elimination of old hormones. So even though it's true, there is a little bit of bile that will come into the intestine post cholecystectomy, which is the fancy way of saying a gallbladder being removed, it's nowhere near enough. So as that bile is circulating enterohepatically from the intestine to the liver, into the gallbladder, back into the intestine, it's clogging up. It's building. Toxins are building up, and this is what leads to the gallstones and what leads to the clogs. Also, because bile has these pleiotropic roles involved in sugar metabolism, intestinal motility, the killing of bacteria in the small intestine, anti-inflammation, antioxidancy, all these multiple roles are going to be inhibited. One of the most important roles that are going to be in problems is going to be the buildup of the bacteria, and not having a gallbladder, not having sufficient secretion of bile is a major cause of SIBO, which in turn is a major cause of leaky gut, which in turn is a major cause of blood toxicity, which in turn is a major cause of bile toxicity. So you get this vicious downward spiral where you get worse and worse and worse. All of which is to say, watching what you eat is extremely important, number one, and making sure you're supporting the bile system, which we'll talk about here in a second, is also important. Because bile is very important for the elimination of estrogen, female hormone, it turns out that women are 2 to 3 times more likely to have gallstones and gallbladder problems. Women are also more likely to have gallbladder problems post-menopause. And postmenopausal women or perimenopausal women, or women in general, should be especially conscious of bile secretion and supporting the health of bile. Sometimes you'll see on bile supplements the term bile acids, and sometimes you'll see the term bile salts. Bile acids are the components of bile, and there's about 60 different bile acids. Bile salts are bile acids that have been attached, in chemistry we say conjugated, but you can just think attached to the amino acid glycine and the amino acid taurine. And these two amino acids play very important roles in the functionality of bile. Taurine is a very difficult amino acid to find in foods. Mostly it's animal foods. In fact, it's all animal foods. And this is one reason why you want to be careful if you're a vegan or vegetarian, because you can run into taurine deficiencies, and this can impact bile. Glycine is found in most high protein foods as well. Whey protein, Nature's Whey, or Fit Shake, I should say, is a great source of glycine, as is bone broth. But the Fit Shake is a great way to make sure that you're getting all your amino acids. In fact, I don't think we talk about Fit Shake anywhere near enough, because it's such a wonderful way to make sure you're getting your basic amino acids. As far as the building blocks of bile, remember we said bile is a derivative of cholesterol, and this is yet another reason why it's important to have healthy cholesterol, good cholesterol, why you don't want to be suppressing cholesterol production artificially with drugs. Cholesterol, as we said earlier, elevated cholesterol is a sign of dysglycemia. And if you really want to concentrate on keeping your cholesterol under control, keep your sugar under control, the second point on the triangle of disease. And if all of this last 20 minutes that we've been talking about bile doesn't show you the importance of the 2 points on the triangle of disease, or the dots of disease, or whatever you decide to call that process, nothing else will. Number one, bile is part of the digestive system, but bile is also part of the blood sugar system. And number two, cholesterol, which is a precursor to bile, its levels are controlled both via the excretion of, the buildup of cholesterol that comes from the blood sugar system, and then bile is important for keeping cholesterol levels stable. Isn't that interesting how bile is made up of cholesterol partially as a mechanism for the body to eliminate the cholesterol? It's not one of the ways cholesterol stays balanced. If you don't have a gallbladder, you have a problem with your bile. If it's sticky and sludgy, you're going to have an issue. If you're making a lot of estrogen, or if your estrogen is out of balance, you're going to have an issue. Because bile is supposed to be help you eliminate estrogen. Without bile, you're not going to be eliminating estrogen effectively. And of course, without bile, you're not going to be absorbing your fatty nutrients effectively. Without bile, you're not going to be detoxifying effectively. And this is one of the reasons why skin issues go hand in hand with bile issues. Skin issues go hand in hand with gallbladder issues. So what do you do if you want to support your bile system? What do you do if you don't have your gallbladder? God forbid they took your gallbladder out. Well, there's a lot you could do. First of all, if you have your gallbladder, keep your gallbladder. If you notice that you're having some of the signs of poor bile secretion, that is, you have SIBO, signs of SIBO, gas or bloating, or when you eat fatty foods, you don't feel comfortable, you feel nauseous, you feel gassy, or you feel bloated after fatty foods, you have a sense of fullness after fatty foods. All of these can be signs that you have a bile/gallbladder issue. If you don't have a gallbladder, obviously you have a bile and a gallbladder issue, and many of these signs occur in people who don't have a gallbladder. Diarrhea, problems with fatty foods, cramping, bloating, constipation, as well as diarrhea can occur because bile is important for supporting intestinal motility and the movement of food out of the body. So what do you do if you have a gallbladder or don't have a gallbladder, you have a bile problem? Well, one thing you could do is you can use bile supplements. And this is one of the reasons why I love the Ultimate Enzymes so much. The Ultimate Enzymes, I consider to be our probably, if not the, one of the most multifunctional products in Longevity's line. The ultimate enzymes don't only have bile in them, of course, they have enzymes, and they also have pancreatic enzymes in them. They also have digestive enzymes, and they have something called pancreatin, which is pancreatic enzymes. Your ultimate enzymes, as Doc calls them, are your gallbladder in a bottle. They have the building blocks of bile, and everybody who has a gallbladder problem, who has a problem processing fatty foods, who doesn't have a gallbladder, would do well to use their ultimate enzymes. And the ultimate enzymes, I'll tell you about some of these, the pleiotropic or multifunctional properties that they have, but there's something very interesting about the ultimate enzymes. You could take the ultimate enzymes, and I recommend that you take the ultimate enzymes with your meals, but you can also take your ultimate enzymes a couple hours after your meals, or 2 hours after your meals, or 3 hours after your meals. That way, the bile support will, you'll be able to leverage the bile a little bit more effectively after a couple hours after you eat, because that's when the food is in the intestine. It takes a while for the food to get from your stomach into the intestine. If you take your digestive enzymes a couple hours after your meals, it'll be easier for your body to leverage or take advantage of the bile and the ultimate enzymes to help you process your fatty foods. Your ultimate enzymes, by the way, you can take those on an empty stomach, and they have great pain relieving properties. They have wonderful anti-inflammatory properties. The ultimate enzymes have great blood thinning properties. So for people who are dealing with sticky blood, or for people who are dealing with long COVID, or people who had the injection, or people who have dental pain, or back pain, or inflammatory pain, or for people who are pre or post surgery, the ultimate enzymes can improve the prognosis of surgery, speed healing from surgery, speed healing from all injuries, improve pain, or provide some pain relief, and provide improvements in blood circulation. And of course, the blood delivers nutrients, delivers oxygen, and detoxifies on its own. So you'll be improving detoxification and nutrient and oxygen delivery too. Again, this is especially important after you've been injected, because one of the most important side effects or adverse reactions associated with the jab, as they call it, is blood clotting. So using your ultimate enzymes can be a great strategy for folks who are worried about getting blood clots post-injection or post-jab, or any kind of blood thinning, any kind of blood thinning need. And sometimes people will say, well, I'm on blood thinners, what should I do? Well, if you're on blood thinners and you use blood thinning nutritional strategies like the ultimate enzymes, or for that matter, like the Fuchs Z, or like the healthy start pack in general, because there's a lot of nutrients that have an ability to thin the blood. You want to work with your physician, but your goal should be to lower your dose on your toxic blood thinner, hopefully, ideally, completely eliminating your toxic blood thinner. But you want to work with your doctor. Blood thinning and blood coagulation is one of the most tightly controlled biochemical processes in the body for good reason. And when the body wants to clot, it's going to clot. And when you use a blood thinner, you're overriding a very fundamental built-in biochemical process. And this is why blood thinning drugs are so toxic, probably the most toxic, if not the most, one of the most toxic classes of drugs that we take. So you want to be very careful with Eliquis and Coumadin and any blood thinning drug that you're taking. And you want to work with your physician, but your goal should be to lower your dose and ultimately to wean yourself off of your blood thinning drug. You can also use, as I say, the amino acids, taurine and glycine, to support bile secretion. Also making sure the ultimate enzymes contain digestive enzymes, and also making sure that your stomach is acidifying, is producing enough acid for a couple of reasons. Number one, acid is important for enzyme activation. If you're achlorhydric or hypochlorhydric, both of those terms mean you're not making enough stomach acid, you won't be activating your stomach enzyme, your digestive enzymes. This is one of the reasons why the ultimate enzymes have something in them called betaine HCl. Betaine HCl has a couple of very important properties. Number one, it's an acidifier. HCl stands for hydrochloric acid. So betaine HCl has an acidifying property. And that's why you'll see the betaine HCl in the ultimate enzymes. If the stomach, a couple other things, betaine is also important for a couple other reasons. Betaine is a source of glycine, which is important for the bile. Betaine is also a methylating agent. So some folks will tell you they have this MTHFR deficiency and they need their nutrients methylated. Betaine methylates for people who have MTHFR deficiencies or they want to improve methylation. I think we've talked about methylation in the past, but it's a really interesting subject and very misunderstood subject. Betaine is a methylating agent. It's a source of glycine, and it's also an activator. It also acidifies, so it helps activate digestive enzymes. And also remember, it's the acid that triggers the bile. In order for the bile to come out of the gallbladder when the food hits the intestine, the chyme has to be acidic. If the chyme is not acidic, because you're hypochlorhydric or achlorhydric, not making enough stomach acid, you're not going to get that blastobile. That blastobile depends on the acidity of the chyme. Without acid chyme, you're not going to get that. So betaine HCl from the ultimate enzymes not only activates your enzymes, not only is a methylating agent and a source of a precursor for bile salts, but it also supports bile secretion once the food gets into the intestine. The chyme gets into the intestine from the stomach. So bile plays multiple roles for health. The best way to support bile secretion or bile health is to not stay away from avoid food toxins and food allergens, processed food, etc., that can make bile sludgy. To improve hormone health, one of the most important supplements that we have, in my opinion, another pleiotropic or multifunctional nutritional supplement, is the ultimate EFAs, which play a major role in the health of estrogen. So if you're dealing with an estrogen problem, if you're perimenopausal, if you're menopausal, all of these times when estrogen can become imbalanced can be improved, or the health of the estrogen can be improved by using your ultimate EFAs. There's also minerals that support the health of estrogen, particularly the osteomag. So the Healthy Start Pack in general, but I would be taking extra ultimate EFAs if you have a gallbladder or if you have an estrogen problem. There are also things like stomach bitters. And these are herbs that you can use, plants that you can use. Starting your meals off with dandelion greens or stomach bitters or horseradish can help support bile secretion. In fact, there's actually a product that has been used for many years called stomach bitters, you may have heard of, or Swedish bitters, sometimes they'll call them. And both of these can support the secretion of bile. If you use them pre-meal, and support the secretion of all digestive juices, which will in turn improve bile secretion. So you can see for multiple reasons, aside from the fact, as important as it is, aside from the fact that bile plays a role in digestive health, bile is going to be important for overall health. It affects digestion, but it also affects bacteria in the intestine. It's important for liver regeneration, intestinal motility, the elimination of toxins like estrogen and old hormones, liver health in general. It's an anti-inflammatory, helps the body process sugar. There's a tremendous amount of roles that bile plays in the body above and beyond digestion. If your bile is not being secreted effectively, either you have a gallbladder issue, or you have a bile tube issue, a bile duct issue, or you've been ingesting a lot of toxins, or God forbid you've had your gallbladder taken out. Bile deficiencies can lead to a whole host of health problems, including skin health problems like boils and cysts and what they call adult acne. In fact, almost always adult acne will involve, to some degree, intestinal health and the health of the bile or the gallbladder. Also, hormonal health issues like postmenopausal hot flashes or menopausal hot flashes, night sweats, etc. These can all involve bile problems as well. So working on the bile system is extremely important, not only by using things like bile supplements, but by using the precursors for bile, or the things that attach to bile, like glycine, the conjugate with bile, like glycine and taurine, and also by using things like Swedish bitters and stomach bitters that helps support the secretion of bile, and then making sure you're getting enough of the proteins, the taurine and the glycine, through your fit shake products or high protein containing foods, or even betaine HCl, which, as I say, will provide for acid in the stomach, activating enzymes, supporting bile secretion, and will also provide you with glycine, which is required for the production of bile salts. I think if there's any, the last thing I'll tell you is they used to give, for people who had problems with bile, they used to give a bile, a medicine that would stick to bile, called Cholestid. You may have heard of Cholestid. Some of you have been on Cholestid. Cholestid is also used to help improve the elimination of cholesterol. Before statin drugs, that was the main strategy for lowering cholesterol levels, was a drug called Cholestid, which bile would stick to and would improve the elimination of bile. At this point, you should all know that lowering cholesterol pharmacologically is a very unintelligent medical strategy. If you want to lower your cholesterol, the best way is to change the biochemistry that's causing elevated cholesterol, which is blood sugar issues. And if you have a bile issue, that can also lead to cholesterol levels being high, because bile is one of the ways that that cholesterol is eliminated. And if you are on prescription drugs and you have a gallbladder problem, you are playing with fire. If you're on prescription drugs and you don't have a gallbladder, you're playing with fire. If you're on hormone replacement therapy and you don't have a gallbladder, you are playing with fire, because bile and the gallbladder are both extremely important for eliminating drugs and for eliminating old hormones. Without a gallbladder, if you have a bile problem, you're running risks of serious toxicity. Anybody without a gallbladder should be very, very careful about prescription drugs, or anybody who's got a bile problem should be very, very careful with prescription drugs, because elimination of prescription drugs is many times strictly dependent, and a lot of times partially dependent, on bile and the gallbladder. Also SIBO, for folks who are dealing with SIBO, bile health is also very important. If you have SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and you don't have the gallbladder, your I-26 is your best friend. In fact, if you have SIBO in general, your I-26 is your best friend, whether or not you have your gallbladder. But the fact is that bile and the gallbladder play an important role, antibacterial role, and folks who don't have a gallbladder and who don't have, or who are not secreting enough bile, are running serious risks of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, leaky gut, and all of the health challenges that are associated with those two conditions. All right, so I hope you guys have a deeper appreciation of bile, not only as a very important digestive fluid, but as a detoxifying fluid, as an anti-inflammatory fluid, as an antioxidant, as a bactericidal, natural antibiotic, and also as one of the ways that the body clears out old hormones, cholesterol, and drugs and other poisons.
That last statement right there, folks, if you didn't hear anything but that and the importance of bile, the gallbladder, and you're on pharmaceutical drugs or any kind of drugs, I hope you heard that, because that right there could be the link to why you are feeling so bad, because you're toxic.
Exactly. The toxins are building up in your body. And remember, gallstones are the sign of toxic, sludgy, dirty bile. And that's not a reason to have your gallbladder removed. It's a reason to take care of your diet, of the food, or pay attention to the kind of foods you're eating and the kind of toxins your body's being introduced, that are being introduced into your body.
When I had gotten in my car accident, they did the MRI. It turned out I had 8 gallstones.
Wow. Did you have
Yeah.
food allergies or problems with certain foods?
Not well. I had problems with like sucralose and coconut, but nothing.
You didn't have a full-blown food allergies?
No full-blown food allergies. But
you know what?
who's to
I want to talk about this next time, Rebecca. But one thing, I just throw this out there. One of the things that happens when you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and then leaky gut and toxins get into the bloodstream is these toxins can activate a certain type of white blood cell. White blood cells are your immune cells. And there's a certain type of white blood cell that's loaded with histamine, which we talked about last time. When toxins can enter the bloodstream through a leaky gut, they can hit these mast cells, and the mast cells will release histamine. When people have this condition chronically, it can lead to a condition called mast cell activation syndrome, or MCAS, that most doctors don't know about. MCAS. Now, when you have mast cell activation syndrome, your body will be extremely, extremely sensitive to any kind of allergen or toxin that gets into it. So if you have mast cell activation syndrome, you will be allergic to everything. You ever hear anybody say, everything I eat makes me break out? Or every time I eat, I have an allergic reaction? Everything. I can't eat anything. A lot of people have said that. I'm sure you've heard people say it, because I hear people say that all the time. That's a classic sign of MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, following SIBO, which can involve bile in the gallbladder or a lot of other things. People who have mast cell activation syndrome will react to the sun. They'll say, oh, every time I get in the sun, I break out. That's a classic sign of mast cell activation syndrome following SIBO and following leaky gut. People who have mast cell activation syndrome can react to warm water or hot water. When they take a bath, they can actually react to water. People who have mast cell activation syndrome can even react to tight clothes. In fact, sometimes people who have this condition, mast cell activation syndrome, can be diagnosed by a condition called dermographia. Dermo means skin, graphia means handwriting. If you can write your name with your fingernail on your skin and it leaves a raised red rash in the form of your signature or the form of your name, that's called dermographia. That's a classic sign of histamine release and mast cell activation syndrome. And that's one of the ways they can diagnose it, actually, with dermographia. So mast cell activation syndrome following SIBO, following leaky gut, and following SIBO can lead to tremendous health misery. And one of the causes can be insufficient bile or lack of bile, or insufficient bile or sludgy bile that's getting into the intestine, leading to SIBO. Yet another reason why you want to be on your ultimate enzyme. So if you find yourself reacting to everything, reacting to mold, reacting to all kinds of foods that don't seem to have a rhyme or reason, using your ultimate enzymes can be a great strategy for improving MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, as well as leaky gut and as well as SIBO, via acidification of the foods, triggering bile, and via the bile salts or bile acids they contain that is in the ultimate enzymes.
All right, so be honest now, folks. Who wrote a letter in their skin to see if they reacted?
Did anybody notice? Did anybody
no
notice?
reaction. So yeah, so
did anybody notice it? Anybody out there? Any hands? Raise your hand if you noticed that. Anybody?
I'm not seeing any like physical hands saying, but we do have hands up with questions.
Okay.
But yeah, that's so. Couple of questions before we get to their questions that's related to this. You had mentioned intrinsic factor.
Intrinsic factor. Oh yeah. Intrinsic factor, IF. Yeah, intrinsic factor is made by cells in the stomach, and then it travels to the intestine, and it supports the absorption of vitamin B12.
And is it only vitamin B12 that
Only vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is a very, very, very powerful vitamin. It's probably the most powerful of all the vitamins. And that's why vitamin B12 doses are so tiny, because it's such a powerful vitamin. So the body has a way of controlling the amount of B12 that will get into the blood and into cells. It doesn't want to have too much vitamin B12 into the blood and into the cells. And one of the ways it controls it is by using intrinsic factor. In other words, if you have too much B12, you won't secrete as much intrinsic factor. And if you have not enough, you'll be secreting more intrinsic factor. It's a control point for the body to control the amount of B12 that will get absorbed into the intestine.
Okay, so there's this is becoming more popular, these B12 injections or shots.
Yes, that bypasses intrinsic factor. It goes right into the blood. So for people who are dealing with some kind of gastritis or some kind of stomach problem, they're not making enough intrinsic factor, they may not absorb enough B12. Injecting it directly into the blood is a way of bypassing absorption issues, because it's going right into the blood. And B12 toxicity is it's very rare. It's almost impossible, because B12 is water soluble, and it will get excreted out of the body. So B12, you can't really overdose on B12, and that's why they feel comfortable injecting high doses of it right into your blood.
Wow. So I know they were giving free B12 shots at this women's expo that I went to last week. It was interesting. Okay, so we have several hands up. So let's go ahead and go to hands. And we only have 9 minutes. Do you have a hard stop?
I do have a hard stop today, yes.
All right, Michelle, unmute yourself.
Okay, tried to start my video, but it won't let me. Okay, so I know you've talked about the gallbladder. Tell us about, I've heard you talk about the appendix being removed and how it affects digestion as well.
Yeah, the appendix, they used to tell you the appendix didn't do anything, and they would just tell you to take it out. Do you ever wonder why appendicitis is such a, first of all, why it happens, and why it can be a life-threatening situation? People have had their appendix out can, end up in the hospital with some serious infections. Why is it that having your appendix burst would lead to severe infection? Because the appendix is a warehouse of bacteria. It's a place where the body stores bacteria for the microbiome. It's a storage facility. Without an appendix, you're not gonna have a storage facility. So the only time people will take your appendix out typically is when you have appendicitis, when it bursts. And that's a serious problem, because now all those bacteria that were supposed to be going into the intestine and into the microbiome as part of the microbiome are now floating around in the blood, and it can lead to serious sepsis and blood infections. People die from it. People die from appendicitis. So the appendix is a warehouse for bacteria. Without the appendix, you've lost a major storage depot for the microbiome. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So would digestive enzymes also help?
Well, they just have anything you could do. Anything you could do to support your digestive system will help prevent appendicitis.
Okay.
So not in a direct way, but by acidification of the food and improving bile secretion and killing excess bacteria in the intestine through a long chain or a cascade of various chemical reactions. Yes, it will. Anything you do to support digestion will support the health of the appendix. The appendix is a digestive organ. It's a structure of the digestive system. It's a part of the digestive system. So if you support digestion, you're going to support all the parts: the liver, the pancreas, the appendix, the gallbladder, the intestine, everything.
So if it's removed?
If it's removed, you want to be very careful about your good bacteria. You want to be making absolutely sure you're using your nightly essence. Also, probably your I-26, because when you don't have the good bacteria, the bad bacteria can overgrow. So controlling the microbiome become very important for folks who don't have an appendix. Folks will realize. Do you have your appendix, ma'am, Michelle?
No.
You notice that you have digestive issues, or you had digestive issues when your appendix was removed?
Well, that happened when I was 14, so who knows? But
yeah,
probably.
Right. most people will notice that they're having digestive problems, intestinal digestive problems specifically after they have their appendix taken out. But again, they usually only take the appendix out when it bursts, when you have appendicitis. Now, the fact that it bursts may have something to do with dysbiosis or messed up gut bacteria in the first place. So working on digestive health, as always, is the first thing to do. That's why it's the first point on the triangle of disease. And as far as the triangle of disease goes, let me say this real quick. There's 3 points: the digestive system, the blood sugar system, and what I call the adrenal thyroid complex. Adrenals are related to the thyroid. And this is why hypothyroidism is impossible to treat by just treating the thyroid. If you think about it, if you have these 3 points, the digestive system, the blood sugar system, and then the adrenal thyroid complex as the tip of the triangle, you can't treat the tip of the triangle without treating the adrenal glands and the blood sugar system and the digestive system. And this is why the thyroid is impossible to treat medically. There's nothing, zippo, nada, nothing the doctor can do to treat the thyroid except for to give thyroid hormone, which doesn't treat the thyroid. That just gives you thyroid hormone. There's nothing they could do for the thyroid, nothing. So that's because it's the 3rd point on the triangle of disease. But what I was going to say is, because these are sequential, digestion, blood sugar, adrenal, thyroid, if you just want to do one thing, work on the digestive system. If you just want to do 2 things, work on the digestive system and the blood sugar system. And if you want to do 3 things, which ideally you do, then you work on all 3 points. But for people who say, hey, I just want one step at a time, digestion first.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
I got muted. So 30 years ago this month, I had my appendix removed.
Did you notice anything after you did?
Actually, yes, I did.
That's the microbiome. That's a disturbance in your gut bacteria. So that's not unusual.
Yeah, I wasn't able to eat anything and everything like I had been prior without getting, and actually that is when I started having IBS.
Interesting. Okay. I'm sure they were connected.
It was a cascade of things starting to go downhill. So that's interesting that you bring that up. All right. Do you have time for one more question? We have Phyllis.
Yes. Yeah, I have time for one more question.
Go ahead, Phyllis.
Yes, Ben, I'd like you to put a little finer point on something you talked about earlier, which is this issue of blood thinners and nutrition. I've got a male client in his 60s, and he has high blood pressure, joint issues. He's on Eliquis. He does take plenty of enzymes, is very careful with EFAs, and just takes one every other day. Now there's that, but there's also—
Is he on the call, this guy?
What's that?
Is he on the call?
No.
Okay. So he's got.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah. I want to write these down. Hang on a second. Let me get a pen here. Can you start again with all these different things that he has?
Okay, in his 60s.
Yeah.
And he has high blood pressure and arthritis.
Okay. What else?
That's it.
Okay. Well, that's definitely not it, but that's the only 2 things he said.
Okay. Right.
Nobody has just one. These symptoms, these health symptoms are like Lay's potato chips. Can't have just one.
And clearly he wants to wean off the blood Eliquis very, very much and work with his doctor and the things you mentioned. He also was reading about CBD, and we have, as you know, hemp products, which include other factors.
Yes.
So he takes lots of enzymes, one EFA every other day. Can he?
Lots of the ultimate enzymes?
Yes.
Can he what?
Say that again.
No, you asked me. You said can he?
Okay. So can he add in like the hemp roll-on?
Yeah, but listen. Of
Going
course,
to be an issue?
absolutely can. That's not a problem. But why is he only taking one ultimate EFA? That's ludicrous.
Because
that's not enough for a gerbil.
The cardiologist has put the fear of God into him about blood thinning.
Cardiologist, listen, I love my doctor friends, and I don't ever want to get in a position of knocking my doctor friends. But they have a certain skill set, and their skill set involves working with drugs. That's how they work. That doesn't mean they're right. And obviously, if you look at medical statistics, they're not right, because we have more doctors than we ever had in the history of the planet, and we're simultaneously the sickest people in the history of the planet. If you have a heart attack, you probably want to have a surgical procedure done. Or if you've been mucking up your circulatory system for 50 years and now you need a stent, or you have blood clots, then you need a medical physician. But to take care of your long-term health, that's not their job. And you're asking them to do something they don't want to do, or they're not skilled to do. They don't have the skill set to do. Essential fatty acids are nature's blood thinners. Why would you take a poison drug instead of doing your essential fatty acids? That's idiotic. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but that's dumb. You know, it's crazy. The EFAs will allow you to wean yourself off your Eliquis. You don't have to do what you, if the doctor, look, I don't want to convince anybody. If you want to do it, do whatever you do. But from a biochemical health perspective, your job is to wean yourself off the Eliquis and improve your body's ability to thin the blood. Now, you're saying he has high blood pressure and arthritis. There's no way. He's got to have all kinds of health challenges. When you have high blood pressure, it's not like a little elf shot an arrow at you and now your blood pressure's high. Obviously, that's the end result of a whole stream of biochemical dysfunction, and you don't only have high blood pressure. High blood pressure is part of the what's called metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome involves a whole, like the name says, all your metabolism. Arthritis, assuming it's osteoarthritis, is a sign of connective tissue degeneration, deterioration. It's not like it's just going to deteriorate in your joints. It's going to deteriorate head to toe. You have connective tissue everywhere. It's not just going to deteriorate in your knee or in your elbow. It's going to deteriorate in your fascia. It's going to deteriorate in your skin. It's going to deteriorate in all the organs of the body, which are structured by connective tissue. So he has a whole bunch of things happening, and that means he's 60 on top of that. He's in his 60s, which, you know, I'm 64. We ain't at the beginning, folks. You know, so we've had a lot of years of our body breaking down. The EFAs are hormonal. They will turn on, activate all of his hormones. They're precursors to skin moisture factors. They're anti-inflammatories. They're God's anti-inflammatories. They're God's pain relievers. They're God's cardiovascular medicine. Your ultimate EFAs are God's statin drugs. They have cholesterol lowering properties like a statin drug. They have estrogen like properties for female hormones and male hormones, or for males, men make hormones too. And they're nature's blood thinners, God's blood thinners. So you can do whatever you want, but taking one essential fatty acids, like I say, is not enough for a small rodent, let alone a human being. And by the way, the first thing that happens when you're deficient in essential fatty acids is skin problems. I will eat my hat if this guy doesn't tell me he has skin. If this guy says I don't have any skin problems, I won't really eat my hat. But I'll be very, very shocked if this guy says I don't have any skin problem.
Okay, well, I think we need to let you go now, right, Becca? Although
Now, let me just say one last thing about dry skin. Dry skin, I have yet to meet a person in all my years of doing this, which is pushing 40 years. I've yet to meet a person that just says they don't have dry skin. Yet we got more moisturizers. Everybody's got moisturizers. We sell $14 billion a year in moisturizing products in this country. People have moisturizers everywhere in their purse and in their locker and in their car and in their office, and 3 in their medicine cabinet and 2 in their kitchen and 1 in their purse. And, you know, we have so many moisturizers, everybody's got dry skin. Well, guess what? Dry skin is a classic sign of ultimate EFA deficiency. Your ultimate EFAs are nature's, God's, the divine forces, moisturizers from the inside out. And also for hormones, for people who have hormone problems, women who have hormone problems, dysmenorrhea, problems with their menstrual cycles or menopausal issues. Your ultimate EFAs you can use your ultimate EFAs to treat dysmenorrhea, problems with the menstrual cycle, as well as problems with menopause. And we should talk about menopause because nobody should ever have hot flashes. Nobody. Hot flashes are not normal, nor are night sweats or anxiety or depression or weight gain or all the other things that happen when a woman has menopause.
Well, thank you so much, Pharmacist Ben. And I am so thankful that I never experienced any of those hot flashes or night sweats or anything like that.
Yeah.
There's been times when I was cold and I was wishing that I had a hot flash, but I was able to sail right through with no problem. So thank you so much. I know you have to get.
I do.
Really take your time with us. It's always so informative, and we've got a lot of people that have made comments with, it's like, wow, great show, great information. And as like them, I'm always learning something when you come on. So
Yeah,
thank you.
let's do a business one next sometime. So remember we did that business Zoom?
Yeah.
Let's
So
do
we
another
can
one
do
soon. Yeah, let's do another one soon. All right.
absolutely not next Friday, but maybe the following.
That sounds good to me. Thank you, everybody. Bye, Rebecca. Bye, AJ. And bye, Albert and Phyllis and Marilyn and all you guys who helped put this thing on. And Dr. Wallach, of course. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. And if I could get my co-hosts on the screen with me, greatly appreciate them, as I could not do this all by myself. Phyllis, thank you so much for joining us here, being part of the team. Greatly appreciate you as well with Marilyn. Both of you do such a great job putting information into the chat and bringing those questions in from all the different platforms. Thank you, both of you. We've got Albert, who is helping to let people in, keep an eye on the Zoom room, making sure that we keep this a safe, G-rated place. We have why did you do that look, AJ? We have AJ, who is helping to make sure that the newsletter gets sent out with your personal invitation to join us here on Daily with Doc. So if you are not part of our newsletter, make sure that you go to dailywithdoc.com and sign up for our email list so that you also will receive not only an invitation to the program of the day, but also the schedule that we'll be having and replays. And as those emails go out with the replays, that makes it easier for you to find the specific program that you may be looking for to share with somebody else so that they too can hear the message that is empowering and giving hope to a very sick world. Folks, thank you so much for joining us here on Daily with Doc. If you have never worked with anybody and you would like to work with a certified holistic health coach to make your life journey a better health journey, feel free to give our team a call at 855-949-3377. Again, that's for people who have never worked with anybody, not already working with a longevity distributor or coach. 855-949-3377. But if you are, make sure that you get back with them. They cared enough and took the time to share this program and this message with you that they themselves deserve to hear from you. And make sure that if you have any questions, that you reach out to them first. If they don't know the answers and they share this program with you, then they probably know how to find answers or help you find answers as well. My name is Becca Dukes. I greatly am so appreciative for this message for my personal well-being, as it has helped me so much that 9 years ago, when I found this program, my whole life changed. And all those things that nobody else could figure out and pushed me off into pain medication and wanting to be on this for this problem and this for this problem and this for this problem that was just making me sicker and sicker, I no longer needed. So folks, I personally invite you to feel the difference that the 90 essential nutrients and the secret sauces that the founder of Longevity found, because, well, the company is called Longevity. He's very instrumental in what needed to be in the products and part of the formulation team based on all of his years of research. And as a pathologist with 3 postdoctorates in pathology and a continual researcher himself, he wants to save the world. And we're part of that. You can be too. So again, get back with the person that shared this program with you. Let them know what part you want to play in saving the world, even if it just starts with yourself, your family, your community. Together, we can make a positive impact. Again, thank you so much for joining us here. We will see you, about June 5th, I believe. June 5th. We're on Daily with Doc. And until next time, bye for now.
Educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual. Results vary and need not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual. Results vary and need not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach.